Emotionally mature men aren't looking at your looks first. They're not even really looking at your words first. They're quietly observing something else entirely, often within the first few interactions, long before they'd ever admit it out loud. Most people assume attraction starts with chemistry or conversation. But emotionally mature men, the kind capable of real, lasting partnership, are subconsciously scanning for something deeper, almost from the very beginning. Today, we're breaking down 5 specific things emotionally mature men notice right away, and the psychology behind why each one matters so much. Let's get into it. Before we dive in, it's worth understanding why emotionally mature men notice different things than most people assume. Psychologists who study relationship compatibility note that emotionally mature people, across genders, tend to prioritize character signals over surface-level ones, because they've usually learned, often the hard way, that chemistry and charm fade, but character determines what a relationship actually feels like day to day, 5 or 10 years down the line. So instead of focusing purely on attraction in the moment, emotionally mature men are quietly reading for deeper compatibility signals, almost without realizing they're doing it. This doesn't mean emotionally mature men aren't drawn to chemistry, humor, or physical attraction. Of course they are, like anyone else. But those things function differently for someone who's emotionally mature. Instead of being the whole basis for interest, they become the entry point, the thing that gets his attention in the first place. What determines whether that initial interest deepens into something real is almost always this second, quieter layer of observation, the one most people never even realize is happening. Let's talk about exactly what those signals are. The first thing emotionally mature men notice is how a woman treats people who have nothing to offer her: a waiter, a cashier, a stranger who's having a rough day. This might seem like a small detail, but psychologically, it's one of the most revealing things a person can observe. How someone treats people who can't advance their status, their career, or their romantic interests reveals their true character, stripped of any performance or incentive to impress. Kindness that's reserved only for people who matter socially isn't really kindness, it's strategy. Emotionally mature men have often learned to distrust charm that's selectively applied. A woman who's genuinely warm and respectful across the board, regardless of who's watching or what she stands to gain, signals real, consistent character. And that consistency is exactly what makes someone feel safe to build a life with. There's also a subtler layer to this. How someone treats people in positions of lesser power often reflects how they'll eventually treat their own partner during moments of imbalance, when one person is more tired, more stressed, or simply having a harder week than the other. If kindness only flows toward people who can offer something back, that pattern rarely stays contained to strangers alone. The second thing is how a woman responds when something goes wrong, especially something that's at least partly her fault. Does she pause and consider her own role, or does blame immediately shift outward, to circumstances, to other people, to bad luck? This single pattern, observed even in small, low-stakes situations, tells an emotionally mature man an enormous amount about what conflict will look like in a real relationship. Psychologically, the ability to take accountability requires a secure enough sense of self to tolerate being wrong without it feeling like an attack on your entire identity. People who can't do this tend to experience even minor feedback as a threat, which leads to defensiveness, blame shifting, or conflict avoidance. Emotionally mature men notice this quickly, because they know that a relationship without mutual accountability eventually becomes exhausting. Every disagreement turns into a battle instead of a conversation. This doesn't mean an emotionally mature man expects instant, graceful accountability every single time. That's an unrealistic standard for anyone. What he's actually noticing is whether, eventually, after the initial defensiveness settles, there's a genuine willingness to look inward. That eventual reflection, even if it takes a little time to arrive, is what separates someone capable of real growth from someone who will simply repeat the same patterns indefinitely. The third thing is the tone, not just the content, of how a woman talks about past relationships. Everyone has history, and difficult relationships are common. That alone isn't a red flag. What emotionally mature men are actually noticing is whether she can speak about the past with some perspective and self-awareness, or whether every story is framed entirely around being wronged, with no acknowledgement of her own patterns or choices along the way. This matters because it's a preview of how she might eventually talk about him, in some future version of a difficult moment. If every past partner is described as purely a villain, with zero reflection on her own role or patterns, that suggests a tendency toward externalizing blame rather than examining it. And emotionally mature men, who value growth and self-awareness, tend to pick up on that pattern quickly, even in a casual conversation. It's worth being clear here. This isn't about expecting someone to speak generously about a genuinely harmful ex or pretending painful experiences didn't happen. Real hurt deserves to be acknowledged honestly. What emotionally mature men are actually attuned to is the presence or absence of any nuance at all, whether there's room in the story for it was complicated. Alongside, he hurt me, rather than everything being flattened into a single, one-sided narrative. The fourth thing is more subtle, whether a woman is comfortable with silence or feels a constant need to fill every quiet moment. This might sound like an unusual thing to notice, but emotionally mature men often read comfort with stillness as a sign of genuine emotional security. Constant chatter, nervous laughter, or an inability to tolerate even brief silences can sometimes reflect underlying anxiety, a need for constant reassurance or external validation to feel okay in the moment. A woman who can sit in comfortable silence without rushing to fill it signals that she's at ease with herself and doesn't need constant stimulation or approval to feel secure. This kind of quiet self-possession is deeply attractive to emotionally mature men because it suggests she'll bring calm into a relationship rather than requiring constant management of her anxiety. This shows up in small, easy-to-miss moments, a comfortable pause during dinner that doesn't turn awkward, a quiet car ride that doesn't need to be filled with constant conversation, a moment of just existing together without either person needing to perform. Emotionally, mature men often describe this quality, once they've experienced it, as one of the most underrated forms of intimacy there is, the ability to simply be present with someone, without needing anything from the moment at all. The fifth and final thing is how a woman handles disappointment or being told no, even in small, low-stakes situations. Does a canceled plan, a differing opinion, or a minor inconvenience get met with understanding and flexibility, or with sulking, guilt-tripping, or subtle punishment? This is a small window into a much bigger pattern. How she'll handle disagreement, compromise, and the inevitable moments in any relationship where both people don't get exactly what they want. Emotionally mature men notice this because they've usually learned, often through past relationships, that this single trait, grace in disappointment, predicts an enormous amount about long-term compatibility. Someone who can be disappointed without making the other person feel punished, for it creates space for honest negotiation and mutual give and take. Someone who can't tends to create a dynamic where the other partner starts walking on eggshells, tiptoeing around disappointing them at all costs. And emotionally mature men recognize that dynamic as unsustainable almost immediately. This doesn't mean disappointment shouldn't be felt or expressed honestly. Suppressing it entirely isn't the healthy alternative either. The distinction emotionally mature men are looking for is between honest disappointment, expressed and then released, versus disappointment that turns into prolonged withdrawal, guilt-tripping, or quiet punishment designed to make the other person feel bad enough to comply next time. Let's bring it all together. 1. How she treats people who can't benefit her, revealing character stripped of performance. 2. Whether she takes accountability, even if it takes a moment to arrive, or immediately deflects blame outward. 3. How she talks about her exes with some nuance and self-awareness, or purely as the villain's story. 4. Whether she can sit comfortably in silence, without needing to fill every quiet moment. 5. How she responds when she doesn't get her way, with honest disappointment, or with guilt and punishment. None of these are about being perfect. They're about genuine emotional security and character, the kind that reveals itself in small, unguarded moments, long before any grand romantic gesture ever could. And that's precisely why emotionally mature men pay such close attention to them, often without even realizing they're doing it. If this video gave you insight into what emotionally mature men are actually paying attention to, that's exactly why this channel exists. We explore the hidden psychology behind love, attraction, and human behavior, the patterns that are true, but rarely explained clearly. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we release new psychology and relationship insights every week. And I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 5 resonated most with you? Drop a comment and let me know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.